How's your day going? Today on Psychological Depth, we'll talk about the topic, how a woman earning more can ruin a marriage. Let's tune in together. Let me tell you about a man I once knew. Let's call him David. David did everything by the book. He stood by his wife while she went through law school, picked up extra shifts so she could lock herself in and study, took care of the apartment, the bills, the groceries, all the invisible, thankless work that keeps a life functioning while someone else chases a dream. He believed in her completely. He sacrificed without complaint. By any reasonable standard, he was a good husband. She graduated, passed the bar, landed a job at a prestigious firm. Her income tripled his almost overnight. And David felt proud, not performative pride, real pride. This was what they'd been working toward together. All those hard years were finally paying off. He thought life would ease up now. He expected appreciation. He expected that the partnership forged in struggle would finally get to enjoy the rewards of success. 2 years later, she filed for divorce. She said they'd grown apart, said she'd changed as a person, thanked him for supporting her during a difficult period, the way you thank a sponsor or a donor, not the way you speak to a husband. David never saw it coming. He had done everything right. He had been loyal, present, supportive, and somehow that wasn't enough. Somehow, helping her become successful turned him into the man she no longer wanted. Today, I want to talk about something that happens far more often than people are willing to admit. How a woman earning more can damage a marriage. Not always, not inevitably, but frequently enough that ignoring the pattern is dishonest. This isn't about whether women should work or earn money. That argument is settled. This is about what happens inside relationships when income shifts, power rebalances, and the invisible structure that holds attraction together quietly collapses. Let's start with a basic truth. Money changes power inside a relationship. We like to pretend it doesn't. We like to say love transcends economics, that modern couples are evolved beyond something as crude as money. But don't listen to what people say. Watch how they behave. Money influences who leads, who decides, who has options, who can leave without consequences, and who can't. When a man earns more, there's an implicit hierarchy. He's the provider. His work funds the lifestyle. His success defines the family's range of choices. This isn't always spoken aloud, but it's felt. And regardless of how you feel about traditional gender roles, this arrangement tends to be stable. It aligns with deep psychological expectations that both partners often carry, even if they'd never say it out loud. When that structure flips, when she earns significantly more, something changes that goes far beyond the numbers on a paycheck. Decision-making shifts, the sense of dependence shifts, the feeling of who needs whom shifts, and those shifts ripple through everything, every disagreement, every negotiation, every intimate moment. The relationship that existed when he earned more is gone. A new one has taken its place, built on a different foundation, and that foundation is often far less stable than either partner realizes. Now, we have to talk about attraction, because this is where people get uncomfortable. Attraction isn't a choice. It's not a belief system. It's not something you can enforce through good intentions. Attraction responds to perceived value, to competence, to strength, to status, to the feeling that your partner is someone you admire, someone you look up to in at least one meaningful way. When a woman dramatically out-earns her husband, her perception of him often changes, not overnight, not consciously, but slowly, subtly. Over time, the admiration that once fueled desire can erode. She used to see him as a provider, a protector, someone whose capability she relied on. Now she doesn't need his provision. She doesn't need his protection, at least financially. His role shrinks, and with that shrinkage often comes a loss of respect, which quietly starves attraction. This isn't fair. His worth as a person hasn't changed. His character hasn't changed. His love hasn't changed. But her perception has, and perception is what attraction answers to. A woman who looks at her husband and sees someone she's surpassed professionally, someone whose earning power is a fraction of hers, someone who couldn't maintain the lifestyle she's built,
often struggles to feel the same desire she once felt. Men understand this instinctively. That's why so many men feel uneasy about a woman's success. It's not shallow insecurity, it's pattern recognition. They've seen what happens when the income dynamic flips. They've heard the stories. Some have lived them.
Men have watched relationships fall apart after years of support, only to be discarded once the career took off. That fear isn't irrational, it's observational. Now let's talk about what I call role reversal tension. We live in a culture that says roles are interchangeable, that either partner can be the primary earner and it shouldn't matter. And on a conscious level, many people truly believe this. They would swear it's true. But underneath those beliefs runs much older programming shaped over thousands of generations. Programming that says men provide and protect, women nurture and select. Status flows differently for each sex. You can't override that programming with ideology. You can suppress it, you can deny it, you can feel ashamed of it, but it's still there, humming quietly in the background. And when a relationship directly contradicts it, when she earns more and he earns less, both partners often feel a discomfort they can't quite explain. She might feel like she's settling. He might feel like he's failing. Neither can articulate it because doing so would mean admitting beliefs they've been taught to reject. This creates a tension that lives in many modern relationships, the gap between what people say they believe and what they actually feel. Progressive on the surface, traditional in the nervous system. When that gap grows too wide, when conscious ideology and unconscious expectation pull in opposite directions, something eventually breaks, and most of the time, it's the relationship. Let's talk about support and resentment, because this is where things turn cruel. Many relationships involved one partner supporting the other through a growth phase, law school, medical school, a startup, a career pivot. One person carries the present so the other can invest in the future. This is partnership. This is teamwork. This is supposedly how you build a life together. During the struggle phase, she appreciates him. She needs him, his steady income, his willingness to manage logistics, his patience with her stress. It all matters. She's grateful because she's dependent. He's her foundation while she's building something uncertain. Support systems are valued when you need support. Then she succeeds. The degree is finished, the job lands, the income jumps, and suddenly she doesn't need support anymore. She's independent, capable. She can handle her own logistics or outsource them. The thing he provided, stability during instability, is no longer required. And this is where something ugly often appears. Gratitude doesn't fade into neutrality, it often curdles into contempt. She looks at him and sees a man who earns less, a man whose contribution no longer feels essential, a man who represents her past struggle, not her present success. I've seen this destroy men who spent years supporting a partner's dream. They did it willingly, they did it out of love. They believed they were building something together, and they were, until the building was finished. Then they realized the structure had an exit sign and it was pointed at them. This isn't every woman, this isn't every relationship, but it's common enough that men need to understand the risk. Supporting someone's growth is honorable, but don't assume that support will be remembered once it's no longer needed. People forget who helped them climb once they're standing at the top. Now let's talk about social context, because the damage doesn't come from inside the relationship. When a woman becomes successful, her social world changes. New colleagues, new events, new circles. She's suddenly surrounded by high earners, high-status people, high-ambition environments. She's invited into rooms she was never in before. And in those rooms are men who match her new level, men who earn what she earns or more, men who feel like peers instead of dependents. She might not act on it, she might remain faithful, but she's now constantly exposed to comparison. And comparison is the thief of contentment. Every time she comes home from a work event and looks at a husband who earns half of what she does, a comparison happens. She may dismiss it consciously, she may feel guilty about it, but it happens. Over time, those comparisons pile up, They turn into conclusions. She starts to feel like she could do better, like she's being held back rather than supported, like her success should come with a partner who reflects that success, and he no longer does. This is the exposure problem. The higher she climbs, the more options she perceives, and perceived options make existing partners feel smaller by comparison, even if those partners haven't changed at all. He's the same man he's always been, but her context has shifted, and context defines perception. Now we need to talk about financial independence and tolerance. This is a dynamic most men don't see coming. When a woman depends on a man financially, even partially, she has an incentive to tolerate imperfection. Not because she's calculating or manipulative, but because leaving carries real costs. The decision to walk away includes material consequences. That friction stabilizes relationships. It forces people to work through rough patches. When she earns more, that friction disappears. She doesn't need him financially. Leaving doesn't cost her. In some cases, leaving might even benefit her. The exit becomes frictionless, and frictionless exits get used. What happens next is predictable. Small annoyances she once overlooked become unbearable. Flaws she tolerated become deal breakers. Not because he changed, but because her tolerance dropped. She can afford to be picky now. She can afford to leave. Men who are used to the old dynamic are blindsided. They assume the relationship has the same stability it always had. They don't realize the financial shift quietly removed the structural beams holding things together. A relationship that survived on love plus interdependence now has to survive on love alone. And love, by itself, often isn't enough to overcome the status imbalance she feels. Let's talk about how these relationships actually break down, because it rarely happens all at once. It happens slowly, in ways that are easy to miss. The early signs are subtle. Her tone changes, slightly more irritation, slightly less warmth. He may not notice because it's gradual. Body language shifts, less affection, fewer spontaneous touches, more physical distance. Engagement drops. She's on her phone more, less curious about his day. She stops initiating plans. All of this happens before any argument, before any serious conversation, before she ever says something is wrong. The relationship cools from the inside first. Then come the criticisms. Habits that never bothered her suddenly do. His friends, his ambition, his career. The same man who was dependable when she was in school is now labeled unmotivated. The critiques multiply. He starts to feel like he's constantly being evaluated and constantly failing. The warmth that made the relationship feel safe is replaced by a low-level hostility that never explodes but never disappears. By the time there's an actual conversation about problems, the relationship is usually already over. She's been checked out for months. The conversation is just paperwork. He thinks they're starting to fix things. She's already planning her exit. Here's something uncomfortable but accurate. Men and women often stay in relationships for different reasons. Men frequently stay out of duty, loyalty, commitment to what they built. Even unhappy men endure because they gave their word. Women often stay out of benefit, emotional, financial, practical. This isn't manipulation, it's incentive structure. When a relationship provides benefits she can't easily replace, she stays. When those benefits fade, or she can provide them herself, the reason to stay weakens. Men assume commitment binds both people the same way. It doesn't. When her income rises and her status rises, and she feels she can do better, the commitment he relied on turns out to be thinner than he thought. Now let's talk about career ambition and neglect. Success demands attention, and attention given to a career is attention taken from a relationship. As her career accelerates, the relationship moves to the background. She comes home exhausted. She doesn't want to talk. She doesn't want intimacy. She wants to recover so she can perform again tomorrow. The relationship becomes a base camp, not a destination, a place to sleep between workdays. Some men handle this fine. Others slowly disappear inside it. They feel like roommates, like an afterthought, like the least important thing on her calendar. This creates a self-feeding loop. The more she invests in career, the weaker the relationship becomes. The weaker the relationship becomes, the less satisfying home feels. The less satisfying home feels, the more she invests in work, where she feels valued and successful. Eventually, the relationship is empty, and leaving feels logical. Now let's talk about legal reality. During the marriage, she earns more. She feels powerful, he feels dependent. But legal divorce law doesn't care about feelings. It looks at contribution and duration, and in many places, the higher earner pays. I've seen women who felt financially superior during the marriage get blindsided in divorce. Alimony, asset division, settlements that feel deeply unfair to them. The man they looked down on walks away with a portion of the success he helped enable. Legally, it makes sense. Emotionally, it feels like theft. And sometimes, that legal consequence is the only accountability the situation ever produces. Let's talk about what this does to men, because the damage isn't just emotional, it's physical, psychological. Living with subtle disrespect is exhausting. The constant sense of being less than, the comparisons, the unspoken judgment. Men often don't realize how much it's affecting them. Sleep suffers, health declines, stress accumulates. And because men are taught not to complain, not to admit emotional pain, they endure quietly, year after year, until something breaks. There's also an ideological conflict here that confuses people. Modern culture says income shouldn't matter, that roles are outdated, and many people sincerely believe this, but belief lives in the mind. Instinct lives deeper, and instinct usually wins. This is why so many couples are confused. They want to be fine with income imbalance. They believe they should be fine, but they're not. And they can't talk about it honestly without violating their own beliefs, so they suffer silently. Men also misread stability. A man whose wife earns more tells himself, "She chose me when she didn't have to. She stayed when she had options. That must mean love." But presence isn't commitment. It can be convenience, inertia, waiting. Stability isn't permanence. Relationships don't continue unless actively reinforced. And a woman who's checked out isn't investing, she's coasting. And coasting always ends. Here's the core truth underneath all of this. Relationships end when future value disappears. People stay when they believe the future is better together than apart. That calculation updates constantly. When her trajectory is rising and his is flat, the future together starts to look like burden. The future apart starts to look like freedom. And you can't argue with that calculation. You can't negotiate attraction. You can't guilt someone into seeing value that isn't there. The only way to change the calculation is to change reality. Build value, build trajectory, become someone whose future looks like upside. If it's too late to save the relationship, building value still saves you. It ensures the next relationship doesn't repeat the pattern. The lesson isn't that women shouldn't earn more. The lesson is that income disparity changes dynamics whether we like it or not. Attraction responds to perceived value, and perceived value responds to status, and status responds to income. So build your own foundation, maintain your own direction. Never assume what you gave will be remembered once it's no longer needed. If you want to go deeper, check the description and tell me in the comments, have you seen this happen? What did you learn? Share the pattern so others recognize it before it costs them years of their lives. So, what are your thoughts on today's topic? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, Psychological Depth, so you won't miss any of our upcoming posts. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.